terms of what's required for customs documentation, in order to be your broker, we have to have really three things. The first one is a power of attorney. We cannot legally conduct what is called customs business on your behalf unless we have power of attorney. This is in the regulations that CBP puts out. It is required for a broker to file a customs entry, and it basically allows us to act on your behalf. So when we talked about earlier, you can't file your own customs entry. This is the document that basically says they aren't filing their own customs entry. I am filing it on their behalf, and they have told me that I can do this. It's just as simple as that. Customs Form 5106, this is a really fancy way of saying this is your importer profile from CBP. This used to be a paper document. It was a big hassle. And what we do now is we actually transmit all of this information electronically. This is things like your EIN or your tax ID number, your official customs address, contacts at your organization, whether you are a corporation, an individual, a sole proprietorship, anything along those lines. Basically, this is a distillation of any client application that you fill out for your broker. So when you become a client for Scarborough, we ask you to fill out a client application, and this is one of the reasons. One is to set you up in our system, but the other is so that when we send your information to customs, there are no problems, there's no blanks. And then the third item that is required, technically you do require a customs bond of some sort with few exceptions, but one of the options is a continuous customs bond, which is good for a full calendar year. That's going to be a good idea for people who have shipments regularly, about more than, I think, 4 or 5 a year, depending on the value, because it is value based. It is advisable to have one of these if you're going to ship pretty regularly, or if you're shipping even a single time with very high value, or an item that is subject to FDA, because something with FDA is subject to triple the value on a bond.
And what if I'm not importing regularly? What kind of surety bond can I get then?
If you are not importing regularly, I believe that is on our next slide here. It is not, so I'll go ahead and back up here. The other option from a continuous customs bond is called a single entry bond. If you are doing an ocean shipment, you actually require 2 single entry bonds. You require one that is for the ISF. So we talked about the importer security filing a little earlier. You have to have a bond on file for that, which is usually just a flat fee. That's not usually value-based, because value isn't something, piece of information that's actually transmitted for ISF purposes. And then upon entry into the country, you have a single entry customs bond, which is going to be based on the value of your goods plus the duties and taxes. So the higher your value, the higher the cost of that is. So at some point, it kind of reaches the same value as a continuous bond. And at that point, you might as well get the continuous bond, because that way you can do entries for an entire calendar year instead of just paying the same amount for a single shipment.
Another benefit of the continuous bond is, you're less likely to hit like a U.S. Customs exam as you would with a single entry bond. Am I correct?
Yes. To some extent, that is true, mostly because when Customs sees a single entry bond, that is sort of a flag that this is not somebody who imports regularly, and thus they might be inexperienced, or it might be someone who just doesn't import enough, and Customs wants to make sure that their lack of regular importing doesn't decrease the amount that they pay attention to what they're doing. So to CBP, like with most policing agents, ignorance of the law is not an excuse for, a breaking of the law.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, it was right here. These are all of the documents that are required to file U.S. Customs entry. We just talked about the 2 types of bonds, the continuous versus the single. The other documents are the commercial invoice, which we talked about earlier is required in order to determine the value and what type of goods are coming in. The packing list is obviously going to give us an idea of how this is packed. It's going to tell us the weights. Depending on how detailed it is, it might tell us how it's palletized or the dimensions of the freight. Bill of lading is going to be a snapshot of your shipment. It's going to say basically, this is where this departed, this is where this is going, this is how many pieces it is, this is how big it is, and these are some of the parties involved. The certificate of origin is not required on all shipments. It is required on any shipment where you are claiming a free trade agreement like USMCA, Korea Free Trade, anything like that, because Customs can request that. And if they request it, we have to be able to provide it to them. So anytime you've got a certificate of origin, it's just a good idea to go ahead and send it to us so that we've got it. If you are filing something with a PGA, a participant or partner government agency, there are other potential forms that are required. For USDA, there's that phytosanitary certificate. There can be a meat inspection certificate if you're importing meat. For FDA, there are there's documentation that can tell you this is a device registration number. This is, the registration number for the exporter or the manufacturer. This is something that will say, like for kind of a specific example for glasses or sunglasses, you have to have a document that basically says that the lenses have been tested, and I believe it's the weight limit before those lenses break or crush. Fish and wildlife, there's documentation showing genus and species of whatever you're bringing in. APHIS is the same thing. So depending on what PGAs you're dealing with, there could be a variety of different documentation required. So if you're bringing in something that you're unfamiliar with, you definitely want to check with your broker and say, hey, I'm bringing this in. I think it's probably going to be subject to FDA. What do you think I need on this? And we'll help guide you through that.
Caleb, as an importer, when should I send all of these documents to you?
The second you get them. Long story short, the more time we have with these documents, the better it is. We want to make sure that we have the best possible idea of what we're bringing in as possible, because if we are not receiving documents until, let's say, this moved inland on the rail, it docked in LA last week, it moved inland on the rail over the last few days, and now it's in Kansas City, and I'm still waiting on your commercial invoice. Well, when I enter that commercial invoice, I find out that this item is subject to FDA and you don't have that documentation ready. We're looking at storage at the rail. We're looking at you possibly not being able to import this at all because you weren't aware that this had to have certain requirements. So the earlier you can get us that documentation, the easier it's going to be for us to tell you, hey, pump the brakes. You need to get this before this leaves the country. Otherwise, you're looking at potential problems.
What if I don't have this documentation? Where do I find it?
Your supplier should always be able to provide you things like this. If you are working with a supplier that is creating goods that are subject to FDA or USDA, they should have experience dealing with those organizations. They should be aware of what there is required in order to import that good into the US. If they are not experienced, I would encourage you to get with them and get with that particular agency and potentially even on a conference call of some sort to say, hey, here's what we need and we need to get this worked out. Because as I said, if you get to the point where that cargo is in the US and you can't import it, you kind of have limited options. You can have the cargo destroyed, which means you've paid money for nothing. You can have the cargo turned around, which obviously incurs additional expenses to send it back to origin, which maybe you can recoup from your supplier, maybe you can't. So making sure that they are aware of the requirements is a huge, huge thing to check as early as possible.